My next guest is the man who prosecuted Charles Manson, the author of, amongst others, the bestseller Helter Skelter. Please welcome Vincent Bugliosi, folks. Boom. Now, what's the deal? Manson comes up for parole every year, although I hear the judge wears a Walkman during the hearing now, but... He's obviously never going to get out, so you're not really worried about it, right?
Well, if he were in a southern state like Texas, you know, where they throw away the key for much less serious crimes, we wouldn't even have to ask that question. But California, Dennis, does not have the best history of keeping convicted murderers behind bars. Manson, on the other hand, is so notorious that it would create such an outrage that I think it's pretty safe to say he'll most likely spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Right.
Originally, he was sentenced to death.
He was?
Yeah. Originally, he was sentenced to death. I told the jury, if this is not a proper case for the death penalty, no case ever would be.
Right.
If you're not going to come back with a verdict of death, why have the death penalty on the books? We may as well abolish it. But then in 1972, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a case called Furman versus Georgia, ruled that the death penalty was unconstitutional, not per se, but the way it was being implemented by the states. They made their ruling retroactive, and everyone on death row, there were about 600 people, including Manson and his family, all of their death sentences were reduced from death down to life imprisonment. So he's serving a life sentence now.
Is it an apocryphal tale about him looking across the courtroom and your watch stopping, or is that...
Well, we had quite a few staring sessions, and the first time went on for about 20 minutes back in chambers, and this time was an open court, and we were staring at each other, and I had a Hamilton self-winding watch. I noticed later it had stopped. I put one little paragraph in the book on that, because his family claimed he could do things like that. I guess they call it telekinesis, the ability of the mind to physically alter matter. The TV movie over-dramatized that entire incident. They showed it at the end of the first episode to get people to watch the second episode. But I don't think he had any such powers. We had several staring sessions after that.
And nothing stopped.
And I watched. I have to say I checked it. If it had stopped the second time, I'd have been very worried. But
now, I read In the Sea Will Tell in hardback. I know now it's the #2 bestseller in the country in paperback. And I get the feeling that, this book was riveting because much of it, it's like a case being tried out in court where the entire thing happened on a place so far away that nobody could ever really be sure of what happened. And I was fascinated by at the beginning that you as a defense attorney now have to be firmly convinced that the person's innocent before you'll or not so heinous a crime that you won't defend them, right?
If I were the only lawyer around, Dennis, I would take whoever came to me, no matter how guilty, no matter how heinous the crime. But I really don't want to... I only got about 5 strands of hair on my head, right? So why do I want to sit down at night at my table, pulling out strands of hair, trying to figure out a way to get a murderer off? Someone...
To make money so you can afford a toupee. But did you like this woman? I didn't even get the feeling. She was so enigmatic in the book, and she seemed to always be holding something back. And I went, did you even like this woman?
She turned the case over to me, and it was like, now it's your problem, you know. And one time she said to me, you know, she was on bail for murder, and she said, Vince, I'm doing very well in my career, and I can think of a lot better things to do than go up to San Francisco to be tried for murder. I told her that there was going to be a judgment day, you know, and
like it was an option.
Yeah, I'd tell her we better meet tonight. She'd say, well, tonight's Monday Night Football. And I said, what about tomorrow night? She'd say, well, my friend's having a birthday party. So, but the case...
She was so nonplussed by it.
I think you'll agree this is an incredible murder mystery. I don't know if the people know about it, but 2 American sailing couples, both escaping from the world for completely different reasons, and their destinies intersect on this small, deserted island in the South Pacific, hundreds of miles from civilization. And the book, And the Sea Will Tell, details the strange, suspenseful relationship between these 2 couples on the island of Palmyra, the summer of 1974. Also the very mysterious circumstances and the terror, and ultimately the double murder of one of the couples, Mac and Muff Brett from San Diego. 2 months later, the other couple turned up with the Graham's boat, the magnificent Sea Wind, at the LOI Yacht Harbor in Honolulu. They're immediately recognized. They're prosecuted, convicted of the theft of the boat, but not murder.
Right.
Then, of course, 7 years later, the book's 650 pages you read. I'm just skimming off the surface.
Man, it goes like that.
There's another couple on the island from South Africa. The woman's walking along the beach one morning. She sees something glistening in the sun, gets up a little closer. She rolls and screams. It's the gold filling of a scorched human skull, identified by dental records from San Diego as being the female victim. The man's body to this day has never been found. At that point, I got involved defending the female defendant. And at the trial, as you know, in San Francisco, a sensational trial up there, the prosecution theory they thought was very simple. 4 people on an island, 2 end up dead, the other 2 end up with their boat acting very suspiciously. 4 minus 2 leaves 2. They're both guilty. And I had to try to convince the jury that 4 minus 2 leaves 1, the man, and that my client was unjustly accused of murder, that even though she had gone to the island with him, was on the island at the time of the murders, came back with him on the stolen Seawind, she was not involved in any fashion whatsoever. Now, not everyone agrees with me on that. The U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, think that she was the brains and her boyfriend was the brawn. But it's a very mysterious case, many levels of mystery to it.
Riveting. Nobody, I love the book, and I was fascinated by the fact that nobody outworks you, I'm sure, in any case you've ever tried, although
I don't have any hair, yeah.
But I see that you've lost one felony jury trial, and I was wondering, does that haunt you, or was somebody with a record of 105-1?
I've lost a lot of court cases. I've lost misdemeanor jury trials, but in felony jury trials, yes, I lost one case. It was a burglary case. I guess the guy wasn't guilty. I shouldn't have prosecuted him in the first place.
You know, I saw the thing between you and Jerry Spence when you acted as if Oswald had lived.
Yeah, right.
And your preparation there was amazing for something that was a fictional recount. And Spence had that whole easygoing Matlock thing happen, but man, you just machine gunned him with the facts, didn't you? And you won, right?
Yeah, the jury came back with a verdict of guilty. This was in London. It was the closest thing to a real trial of Oswald that the Kennedy case ever had. We had the original key lay witnesses in the Kennedy assassination. Now, by that what I mean is that if Oswald had been prosecuted in real life, the witnesses, the witnesses the government would have needed, we had in London, and we had a real jury, a real judge, and
the real Oswald.
But no script, no actors,
yeah, it was great.
And I came to the conclusion that Oswald was guilty and acted alone. If this is a typical audience, 85% don't accept this. They believe there's a conspiracy, but I'm convinced that it's all moonshine, that Oswald acted alone. Yeah.
Vincent Bugliosi, folks. We'll be right back after this. Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it. Hey, we're welcome back. I didn't even get to it because I was so wrapped in conversation. Vincent, what is the name of the film? Is Till Death Us Do Part, TV movie? It's on Monday night on what?
NBC.
NBC, what
about
time?
My prosecution of a former L.A. police officer, fired from the force. He went on a murder spree and started killing people.
One I haven't read yet, but you got to give me a copy. I can't find it in a bookstore. I'd like to thank my other guests, Louis Gossett Jr., Pixies, Michael Kinsley, and let me see, it's the weekend. I'm off. I'm going to go to Hefner's and rollerblade on the tennis court because that's what we do in L.A. Good night, teenagers.